who was apparently very healthy. That was what we thought. And she died of a heart attack in the middle of the night. Middle of the night. Unbelievable. You go over in your mind, Darius, could I have called? Could I have said something? You know, because it was one of the few times in our 30 plus years of friendship that I hadn't spoken with her in a couple of days.
Wow.
It was very unusual for us not to speak every day. But occasionally that would happen if she and I got really busy, and she and I were both really busy, and on and on and on. So these are just things that you think about. So anyway, it's a lot, but it's something for us to think about and to something for us to think about. So I'm so glad to be with you. And you know what, Matt, you can give me a verbal before you give me before you give me the before you tell me who's on. I mean, before you send me the text.
Okay.
Just so that I can see.
Okay. We've got about a minute here, by the way, too.
Fantastic. Okay. Reverend Brooks.
30 seconds.
Okay.
All right, 10 seconds.
Thank you.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's a joy to be with you today on Thursday. Should I call it pre-Friday? I'm not so sure, everybody. Take it one day at a time. Thursday, February 17th, 2022. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, having taken over the reins from Air America. We are WCPT, and I'm also up there with my friends and beloveds in Minneapolis, St. Paul at AM 950 Radio. Good morning, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Good morning, everybody. All of my morning stars from all over the country, all over the world. Tampa, Gretchen, how you doing? And, of course, Andre here in Chicago, Dave Dowling to the north up in Canada, sending you much love. Linda, everybody, Samantha, please join my Morning Star family on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, or on the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. That is my official page. That's the only one that you should be joining. And please meet me over there, everybody. I'm Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you. I want to hear your voices. Many of you are calling in. I'm so pleased about that. Call us at 773 763 9278 773 763 9278. Let's talk about our heart health today. This month, it is American Heart Month. Are you at risk for hypertension, a heart attack, a stroke? We're going to talk about that today. Are the symptoms different for men and women? We're going to talk about that today. And then we're going to be discussing Ukraine. What is going on there? And are we going to give peace a chance? And what about Afghanistan? We're going to be speaking with Medea Benjamin, the co-founder of Code Pink. Yes, that Medea Benjamin, to find out what is going on and why has America seized the monies of the Afghanistan government. Why? And what about Ukraine? Where are we going with all of this? Where are we going with all of this? And then, of course, the Ahmaud Arbery case. Every day we're hearing more and more about this huge volume of racist messages that these three men who killed Ahmaud Arbery, that they felt that black people were subhuman. They even had racist songs. We want to talk about that. And why is it appropriate to present this in the federal case and not in the state case when we were trying to look at whether they murdered him or not? Can't wait to talk with NAACP Atlanta attorney Gerald Griggs. Can't wait to talk with you about everything today. So let's get right to it before we hear from Pastor Brooks and get some good news, everybody. In Chicago, I hear the wind blowing. It might snow today. 35 degrees will be the high. Minneapolis, St. Paul, frigid. 8 degrees above zero, mostly sunny. The Dow closed down 54 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 15 points, but the S&P 500 closed up 3 points. Good for them. In the NBA, the Timberwolves fell to the Raptors. The Raptors 103, the Timberwolves 91, and the Bulls were triumphant over the Kings 125 to 118. In the NHL, the Wild, well, they fell to the Jets. The Jets 6, the Wild 3. And tonight, in Chicago, the Blue Jackets will be facing off against Chicago's team. Russian forces along Ukraine's borders have increased by about 7,000 troops in recent days, despite claims from Moscow, according to the CNN report. Moscow said that they were pulling back military units. That is, according to a senior U.S. administration official who warned that President Putin's public openness to diplomacy was a guise. We'll be talking about that with Lydia Benjamin in about an hour or so. Everybody, they say nothing has changed. The U.S. government plans to make high-quality masks available for children, a senior advisor to the White House told CNN yesterday. The move appears to be an extension of the Biden administration's ongoing effort to distribute 400 million free N95 masks from the Strategic National Stockpile for the public to access at pharmacies and community health centers nationwide. U.S. lawmakers have less than 2 days to pass a short-term funding extension to avoid a government shutdown on Friday. It remains unclear whether the Senate will vote on the continuing resolution, which would keep the government open by extending funding through March 11th. Did you know that Americans are really struggling? Really struggling. We have dived into credit card debt faster than we have in 22 years. We're living on our credit cards. What is going on, everybody? Our balance has spiked by $52 billion in the last 3 months alone of 2021. Inflation is only partly responsible, according to this report, raising the cost of food and gas. Indeed, some experts say that gas could reach $5, $6, or even $7. If the gas prices go that high, would you be able to drive? Call me, text me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Would you be able to drive your car if gas goes up to $5 a gallon? If gas goes up to $6 a gallon, what about $7? What about $7? Oh, Pastor Darius Brooks, your will is what's best for me. One of the great songwriters, psalmists in the history of modern gospel music, but you're also a great pastor. Grace Central Community Church in Westchester, Illinois. I want you to get on out there. And before you give us the good news, are you worshiping in person? Or are you doing it virtually, or both?
We are worshiping in person, and we're worshiping virtually, both as well. We need them now more than ever before, Santita.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how can we reach you on Sundays?
Grace Central Church, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois. Again, that's 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois. It's right by Hillside, right off of 290 in Manhattan. GraceCentralChurch.net. GraceCentralChurch.net.
And also, very quickly, you are also feeding people through the week. Because a lot of people are struggling out here. They're living on their credit cards. They don't have any money. And you and First Lady Deborah and this beautiful Grace Central family are feeding people throughout the week. How can people access that food?
Yeah, please call the church 708-544-5020. Definitely come by the church. Santita, we're nonstop. Every Tuesday from 5 till 7, we feed between 300 and 600 families. We do not stop. We didn't stop during the pandemic. We did it all through the pandemic. And now we've just added Wednesday, the next day, from 12 noon till 2, so that seniors won't be out late because it gets so dark. So we do Tuesdays from 5 to 7, and we serve eight different communities. We serve 8 different communities, proviso townships. We serve 8 different townships. So y'all, please, and we always have ample food. We give $200 to $300 worth of food every Tuesday from 5 to 7, 3 to 600 families, and on Wednesdays from 12 noon for seniors. Okay, and if you really need some help, call us. We'll come bring it to you.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And please, everybody, reach out to gracecentral.net and give them a contribution, because that is really doing the work of the church. What's the good news today, Pastor Brooks?
Santita, it doesn't matter where we go. I was listening to you talking about a heart health. And Santita, it's 2 positions we have to learn that God speaks to us on: a spiritual place and a natural place. And the heart health that you're talking about really is the natural place where the doctors tell you to drink water and take care of yourself and go get checked out with everything. It's so true. You are absolutely right. And the Word of God says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to thy own understanding. And in all thy ways, acknowledge God, and he will direct your path. This heart health is not a joke or a game. It's not necessarily just a heart health, because Santita, I'm about to run. If your mental health is messed up, you done already messed up your heart health. Because when your mind is gone, you just don't want to do nothing no more. But the heart health that I'm talking about is the one that helps with the natural health too. It's designed for our conversation. Everything that happens to us is designed for our conversation. When we ask God to direct our path, he not only deals with our heart, Santita, he deals with us mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, spiritually, socially, culturally, verbally, sexually, professionally, personally. In all of these areas, God literally directs our path. All days are different, but each day has a design for our conversation. Every morning you get up, you got to say, God, where do I go from here? It's something we cannot do anything about. There's some things that we cannot do anything about. It's already a part of his plan. We just don't know it. God is the only one that has a promise after his word. Did you hear what I said, Santita? I was listening to you about your friend, and as much as we could do whatever we can do, God is the only one that has a promise after his word. I stopped telling people they need to be born again. Girl, I became born again. And once I became born again, I said, what he done? Claire used to say, there's no secret what God can do, what he did.
He'll do it for you.
But really put him in your heart, people of God. I really did become born again, and I shared with them that he's done it for me. And I mean happy. I've never been so happy in all my life, allowing him to be my guide in every area. And my sharing it with people is this: he'll do it for you. See the way he has it. Look at things the way God has it. It's all about where you finish. When you trust God, I'm done, girl. When you trust God with everything you're doing, it's not about what you do. It's about where.
Dr. Knight and Dr. Still already, still working on Dr. Verholden.
God bless you. Amen to that. Amen to that. And we are dealing with all of that today. We're dealing with the heart, with your spiritual heart and your physical heart. But we have got to take care of these physical hearts, because you know what? Your ticker needs to work in order for you to stay down here on earth. And I want you to get as much from this earthly experience as you can. Again, how can we get in touch with you, and when can we see you? How can we get food during the week, and how can we get our spiritual food on Sundays?
Grace Central Church, we're on YouTube, virtually, gracecentral.net. You can go to our YouTube channel, Grace Central Church, Pastor Darius Brooks. The church address is, again, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois. Services from 10:30 to noon, and we're on time. We start on time, and we get out on time unless the Holy Spirit say so. And then on Tuesdays from 5 till 7, we are feeding 300 families. You please welcome. Don't, if you don't need nothing on this side of heaven, don't need no food, because you can call Grace Central and get it. Milk, eggs, everything. And then on Wednesdays from noon till 2, we feed the seniors so they don't have to be out at night. We're excited about what we do on serving the communities and just doing the will of God. We're really excited.
Amen. 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 Everybody, there's no reason for you to starve. There's no reason for you not to get any food. And if you want to hear some great singing, you can do that too. Don't leave this earth without going to hear Pastor Darius Brooks, because he's going to break into a song, something that he's written or something that somebody else has written that he's going to rewrite for them. I'm sending you much love, Pastor Brooks, and give my love to the First Lady. We love the former banker, now the First Lady of your church. We love we love you, Pastor Brooks, and we love First Lady Deborah. You know what? We have got, oh, I love you. I love you. I love you. We have, this is American Heart Month. American Heart Month, and I want us to talk about our heart health this month. In the midst of this pandemic, but quite frankly, in the midst of our day-to-day lives, many of us are walking around on the verge of heart attacks, on the verge of strokes, on the verge of hypertension, and we don't even know it. We're walking around with these silent killers. And I want you to tell me your experiences. Have you had the fluttering heart? Have you had heart pain? What are the signs of heart disease? What are the signs of an impending stroke and heart attack, and on and on and on? And if you have a heart attack, should you have aspirin in your purse? I mean, I just want to know what we can do to mitigate permanent damage and death. But first, we need to understand just how important the heart is and what we can do to take care of it. And so we have got Dr. Shanina Knighton on with us today, of course, infection preventionist, registered nurse, and of course, research scholar from Case Western Reserve University. She's part of the family here. But she's brought someone, a brilliant doctor, Carolyn Still, who is also at Case Western Reserve with her. She's an assistant professor there. And you all are going to talk to us about our heart health today. Dr. Shanina Knighton. It seems, I must tell you, I've talked about this before, and I've talked to you personally about this. I'm at the age now where I'm watching, like, my classmates from college begin to make their transitions. And it's always stunning when you start watching your friends go. But particularly with, Pastor Brooks, but when you start watching, and they're young, they're not 60. I lost a slew of girlfriends, 4 in 1 year. Quite frankly, in a 6-week time, time period, Dr. Knighton, and they all had cancer. They all had breast cancer, each one of them. At each one of them, they were high wage earners. They had access to the best health care in the world, and they went to the Mayo Clinic. They went to the Cleveland Clinic. They went to everywhere. But guess what? They were also African-American women, and a lot of the treatments did not work. So that's another story for another day. Dr. Olapade here at the University of Chicago, a Nigerian American, has been doing groundbreaking research, really developing medicines that would help Black women, African descended women, with cancer treatments, with breast cancer treatments. But that's another story for another day, because we've got to look at our heart health. Indeed, I was reading about singer Dee Dee Davis. She's a well-known singer, brilliant singer up in Detroit. And she was saying that, do not ignore the signs. She was ignoring signs, heart palpitations. She thought that with her busy life, she's got a family, that just went with the job. And a lot of us do that. She worked 16-hour days, and the next day she was preparing to go on a trip. So she went to a mall, and she started feeling an irregular heartbeat. That got her attention, because her heart was beating real fast. Wow, that could have ended badly for her. It did not. But she said, after that experience, don't ignore the signs because it turns out that she did have a heart condition. That she was, in the course of living and taking care of her family and everybody else, we kind of put that on the back burner. Dr. Knighton, talk to us this morning. Welcome home.
Good morning. So I just honestly want to just take a little bit of time to drop some interesting stats, from the American Heart Association and just some food for thought. For one, just for people to know that, cardiovascular or heart disease is the number one killer of women, causing 1 in 3 deaths each year. It's a third of our mothers, sisters, and friends, neighbors, co-workers, and more. It's a third of the women we can't bear to live with. It's interesting because many people think that there's a myth that there are only older women that suffer from cardiovascular disease. But in fact, we actually know that among females 20 years and older, nearly 45% are living with some form of heart disease, and less than 50% of women entering pregnancy in the United States have good heart health. And this is interesting because, we just talked about pregnancy yesterday and just maternal health, Santita. And we talk about the fact that heart disease, it is the number one killer of new moms. And accounts for over 1/3 of maternal deaths. And so it's just kind of linking from yesterday, right? And so when we're thinking about the fact that our symptoms as women may not necessarily be as prominent as men, and just as you mentioned, there being symptoms that we don't even think about, like just in general, you say to yourself, okay, well, what is it that we need to do? And I think that's even more of a reason why we have, Dr. Steele here today, because this is her area, this is her science, when she's looking at topics around high blood pressure of, African Americans, and really just understanding that it's a problem just in general. And so I think it'll be interesting for her to just share some of her interventions and the work that she's been doing in this area.
Dr. Steele, I welcome you to the show because this is heart disease is killing all women, black, white, brown, yellow, red, and I'm really concerned. I'm concerned about everybody, but I think it's very interesting when I think of, black women in the inner city and in rural areas. When I look at our Hispanic brothers and sisters and our sisters who are Hispanic, and I'm thinking of the indigenous women on these reservations where they do not have adequate health care. I mean, they can't even get access to the vote. There are so many, not just pockets of poverty, just huge swaths of Americans who are poor. And I'm wondering if there's also a connection between, is there a connection between our economic health and our heart health?
Hello.
Hey,
Thank
Dr.
you for
Steele.
inviting me. How are you?
It's great to hear your voice, and I'm so glad that you're here because I will tell you. I mean, really, I am still trying to process, and I have not been able to really process it. You have your girls. I mean, someone who you like talk to, not just every day, but something crazy happens, and you call them. They have been through your marriages, your near marriages, your broken hearts, all of that, right? And they've just been with you. Well, one of my rider dies, and I am just still trying to process it. She died right after the 4th of July, and in the middle of the night. And I hadn't talked to her in a couple of days, which was very unusual. But I was trying to get out the country like the next week. Then one of my best friends was from college, was getting married. I had to go to California that weekend. You're just crazy. And I said, as soon as I get to LA, I'm going to call her so we can get some giggles in. No. I landed at LAX and I got a call from a very dear mutual friend who said, no, she died 2 days ago. I mean, not even 55. And I'm like, what? Dr. Steele, when we get back on the other side of the break, I want to talk to you about that because I got to tell you, I'm like, and this is someone who was in the best shape of her life. She used the pandemic because she had all these gadgets. She used the pandemic to be in the best shape of her life. She was like 10 pounds away from her goal weight. Just, I don't even know what to say. And I want to know with respect to heart attacks, with the warning signals, are there differences between men and women? And are the differences between men and women the reason that so many women miss the signs of heart attacks? We miss the signs of strokes, that we miss the signs of hypertension. We're missing a lot. And we're also missing out on the best part of our lives, where indeed we're losing our lives. So I want you to call me. Let me know if you have been feeling heart palpitations. Come on. You can do it anonymously. You can do it. You have these doctors here who can help you with this, because I'm just the host here. Be okay. Oh, call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Let's speak with our special guest, Dr. Carolyn Still, who's been kind enough to be with us this morning. She's from Case Western Reserve University. She's talking to you about your heart health, of course, with our own Dr. Shanita Knighton, infection preventionist, right here on the Santita Jackson Show. Oh, okay. You know what? Dr. Verholden is trying to call in. Matt, if you can try and get her. But I'm going to come right to you, Dr. Still. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. I stopped talking because I'm trying to get out on time on the break, because we're on it in more than one city. Carolyn Griffey, how you doing this morning? First baby of Solar Records, my girl. She is now the lead singer in Shalimar. Hey, my girl. When are you coming to Chicago? When are you all going to perform here? I want to hear. Don't you want to hear some Shalimar? Yes. Howard, Hewitt, come on now. Ooh, they're performing all over the world. This is my beloved sister. We have some stories. Love you, girl. Carol Soskin, not me, from Los Angeles. It's okay. She's from Beverly Hills. Joyce and Barbara Bacon and Francis and so many of you. Louis Chewy and Mark from D.C., my old stomping grounds. I love D.C. And
Okay,
Francis.
we have Dr. Verholden.
Okay, Dr. Verholden, how are you?
Try it again. I just put her through.
No worries. Dr. Verholden? Good morning. We have Dr. Still up. And so if you can just set the table for us in a couple of minutes, and then we're going to go right to Dr. Still.
Okay.
Dr. Carolyn Still from Case Western Reserve. This is one of Dr. Knighton. Dr. Knighton, you make the introduction. This is the introduction. This is one of your colleagues. Girl, go on.
So actually it's interesting because I'm sure both of you have heard about each other at this point. And I was about to say, Dr. Still, I've talked about Dr. Deb, my mentor, from Michigan State, collaborator and all of those good things. And lead epidemiologist, background from Hopkins. And Dr. Deb has actually brought me to Santita and has just welcomed me into so many opportunities to just be able to discuss my science and be able to just spread, what it is that I'm developing, what it is that I'm working on, to be able to just help others and collaborate, which has been great. And Dr. Steele is my mentor, too, at Case, also a very good friend who studies hypertension amongst African Americans and is also in the technology space of working on interventions to improve self-management of people suffering from hypertension. So I think that's the best way to sum it up. Santita caught me on the spot today.
Oh, come on, girl. Look, you're ready. You're ready. Get out of here. You're ready. I'm not even thinking about this child. She is too ready. And if she's not ready, she better get ready. How about that? I'm going to help you do that piece. Uh-huh. Oh, guess
So
what?
you can
Coachella
be
and
feeling good.
Stagecoach are dropping all COVID-related restrictions. You won't have to have a vax or uh, a test.
Well, it probably has more integrity than having a mass Super Bowl where nobody actually has on a mask. I was shocked when I found out that the Super Bowl was actually
30 seconds.
I was like, every time I glanced up, I didn't see a mask.
Oh, please get over that too. These people, this is
It's out,
not right.
Coachella outside though, ain't it?
Mm-hmm. But last year, honey, you had to give them a pound of flesh, and now you don't have to have. You can just come on in.
Everything.
Oh,
everything can roll back right now, and I think the biggest thing.
Well, hold on. You know what? That's
this is gonna be.
We can change the
Here you
world.
go.
Change the world. Change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Call us or text us at 773-763-9278. Have you had that palpitation in your chest? Maybe your chest hurt for a hot second. Maybe it was your heart. Do you have nausea? I mean, is your stomach upset? There are so many things that you need to be looking out for, ladies in particular, and men. The different heart attacks warn you in different ways. And so I want to hear from you. And what about hypertension? What about strokes? What can we do if we're caught thinking that we're having any of those conditions? What do you do? And why is this the number one killer of women in the United States? What is going on? Call me, text me at 773-763-9278. Dr. Knighton, before we go to Dr. Carolyn Still, who's about to get into it with us, we have Dr. Deb with us. In a couple of minutes, why don't you set the table for us? This is American Heart Month. And even though it's the number one killer of American women, we ignore these signs. We don't even know what they are. Dr. Deb.
Yeah, this is great. I'm glad to have our two leaders in health and healthcare really bring this home for us. You know, the thing that from a public health perspective about heart disease is a lot of what we see with heart disease. Most of it is preventable. Most of it is linked to lifestyle and diet and exercise and those kind of things. So the good news is there's a lot of this is in our hands, and there are real things that people can do to promote their heart health, and then you got people like me working from the public health perspective to figure out how do we create, better, safer, supportive, nurturing environments for people to be able to make better decisions. So, to have something that's the number one killer of people, in this country, I think it's important that we talk about what can we do to prevent heart disease.
Unbelievable.
It's one of those things where once you've gone down the drain, it's hard to come back.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my aunt last year, and ultimately what she died from was heart failure because she had unmanaged hypertension, unmanaged diabetes. Not that she wasn't going to the doctors, but she was never able to, get it under control. She started to lose her mobility. She started to get the fluid in her feet first, and then in her legs, and I was trying to explain to her, and I have an uncle going through the exact same thing right now. You are now requiring your heart to work double time to move all this fluid around and try to compensate for all the things that are breaking down in your body. And I'm like, you got one heart. And if you run that one into the ground, when it's gone, so are you. So I think this is a really great conversation for us to be having because a lot of times people have loved ones who are going through certain things, and we'll hear they died of a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think a lot of people really know and understand what that means. I don't think that a lot of people understand that's just not some random event that occurs. And I don't think people understand the link between your overall health and your heart health and why managing your overall health and preserving your heart health is so important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, looking at your gums, making sure your dental health is right. I mean, because all of these things are indicators. They are giveaways. Dr. Carolyn Still, start with what Dr. Deb was talking about, that heart disease is preventable. And that, I guess so many people have heart attacks. We just think that, okay, people have heart attacks. And you're saying, no, it's not quite like that. Doesn't have to be like that. Dr. Carolyn Still from Case Western Reserve University. Welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you. And I think you all have covered all the valid points in terms of heart disease and being able to recognize symptoms. But as you know, you mentioned it is the silent killer. And with women, it tends to happen more because the signs do not typically present as they do for men. When we think about shortness of breath, headaches, referred pain that goes to the shoulder, the nausea, symptoms that are not typical of heart attack, women experience them and may brush it off. And thus, it's a delay in care and further perpetuate symptoms where they come in worse conditions and typically may die from these presenting symptoms. Dr. Dab mentioned that there are preventable risk factors when we talk about managing our diabetes, understanding our cholesterol, understanding our hypertension, which are preventable risk factors. And a lot of my work from the perspective of a nurse scientist tends to focus on developing interventions that can empower individuals to self-manage their health, empower them to have knowledge, to be able to speak to doctors when they go to these visits, and empower them to stay informed about their health. And so understanding these symptoms and what individuals can do can overall help them better manage their health and well-being. And so that's where we, as scientists, medical professions, we have to constantly have programs such as this, have events in the community that constantly convey this message, convey the symptoms and what to look for. If you're experiencing memory loss, you start to have slurred speech, what do? Are you recognizing the signs and symptoms of stroke? And all of this is important, especially as we talk about Heart Health Month.
Well, if you could help us to understand, what is a heart attack? What is a stroke? What is hypertension? What are the warning signs?
So when we talk about stroke, it typically is where you're having a vascular event. And when I say vascular event, there is some type of cutoff in terms of how your heart is functioning, to say it in layman's terms. And this could stem from cholesterol buildup. It could stem from elevated blood pressure over time. All of these factors can lead to a stroke. When we talk about heart attack, it is sudden. The pain, it radiates to the chest wall. And with that pain, individuals tend to clench. They tend to stop in their tracks. It is just a pain that's undescribable. In terms of a heart attack, they could pass out, become unconscious. Basically, the heart is stopping. And that's what a heart attack is in layman's terms. So recognizing these symptoms, and the next step should be, what should you do if you are a bystander, or if you're going through this? And of course, immediately seeking emergency help, calling 911. Do you need to begin CPR measures to pump the heart, to circulate blood until emergency systems arrive? And so these are some of the things that you can do. Now, in terms of aspirin, taking an aspirin to prevent symptoms, there are two sides of the track to that in terms of should you take it immediately or should you not take it? And there are opposing views on that in that regard. But overall, just understanding what these preventable factors are, including smoking, stop smoking, can help with some of this in terms of vasculature. And we have to understand that once we have vascular disease, that doesn't go away, but we can prevent comorbidities or other conditions from spawning from having some type of vascular disease, because it takes time. It builds up over time. It's not something that just pops up.
So you don't just have a heart attack or a stroke. It is something that builds up over
Correct.
time. But let me ask you this,
Correct.
because many of us live alone, or we might find ourselves to be alone, particularly in this time, because we're still in the pandemic. If you, what should you be looking out for? What are the warning signs of a heart attack? And if you find yourself by yourself, what should you do if you have them?
Definitely don't delay care. If you're finding yourself having shortness of breath with your day-to-day activities, such as walking up the stairs, walking from one side of the house to the other, if you're noticing some of the symptoms you mentioned, your friend was having, I believe that was Dr. Dab, the swelling, starting to see puffiness in limbs, or just having heart palpitations, or feeling like your heart is skipping a beat, definitely seek help early. Don't delay care.
So do you go to the emergency room, or do you go see your doctor? What if you don't have a primary care physician? Who do you go see?
So if you don't have a primary care physician, try to establish one. Do an urgent care visit, or set up a visit with a community provider. Most days, many of the organizations do take walk-ins to establish care. So that is something that they're recognizing in terms of health equity and inequalities that are driving some of these disparities in health, is to offer more accessibility to individuals that may not have primary care. We know that in certain populations, the ER is typically used as a first source of health, but we know with the COVID that has shifted a bit. People are not seeking care, thus they are basically delaying care, and because they're not going into the ER, they're having sudden death episodes, including those individuals that may be having signs and symptoms of a stroke.
So is there, I mean, as we are, what can we do? Let's roll this back, because Dr. Deb said, this is preventable. You and Dr. Knighton have said this is preventable. What can we do to help prevent a heart attack, a stroke? You mentioned smoking.
Yes. So the American Heart Association, as well as other organizations, recommend heart-healthy diets, increasing physical activity. Walking is an activity, not staying stationary. Also, taking care of those comorbidity diseases such as diabetes, taking care of hypertension. And a lot of my research has focused on hypertension, and it has been somewhat of a complex managing hypertension in terms of the hypertension war, which is the lack of consensus in terms of how to manage high blood pressure. The current guideline now recommends that individuals' blood pressure should be 130, which is that top number, the systolic blood pressure, and the bottom number should be less than 80. I'm sorry. So 130 over 80. Your blood pressure should be lower. However, because of the lack of consensus and the way in which some providers may manage hypertension, some still believe that that number should just be less than 140. And so many populations or certain individuals are told that if they come in, their blood pressure is checked, 140 is fine, when in fact it's not fine. The goal is to get your blood pressure lower. Lower blood pressure prevents stroke, heart attack, and even research is now saying that it prevents memory loss and Alzheimer's. And so just with everyone getting on the same page in terms of the best evidence that's out there, the recommendations to lower blood pressure, we can say some of these other consequences of high blood pressure can be preventable. Also, it's important to know that for managing hypertension, we know that some minority patients require at least 2 to 3 medications to get their blood pressure under control. However, some are only, it's a large majority that are only on one blood pressure pill. And we know that the science is telling us certain medications do not work in certain populations. And so this is where we, in my research, we empower individuals to understand certain aspects of medication and how to speak with their providers to let them know, you know, I know my numbers and my numbers should be lower than that. Mm-hmm. And so helping with cardiovascular disease, the number one modifiable risk factor is hypertension. And then also focusing on other cardiovascular conditions such as diabetes and cholesterol that also impacts heart health is the key to managing overall heart health.
We're talking with Dr. Carolyn Still, assistant professor at the Bolton School of Nursing at Case Western Reserve University. What about our heart health, everybody? The number one killer in the United States, heart disease. Why do you think so many women die of heart disease? And I'm going to start with you, Dr. Still, but I'd like to open it to the panel. You know, is it, are we so busy taking care of everybody else that we miss this? Or is it that we don't know what the signs was, or is it a combination? I mean, and we've lived through some really stressful times over the past couple of years, Dr. Still. It has been very difficult. And then being poor, being poor or struggling, trying to count your money, that is stress. All this stress, oh my gosh. I know heart disease was a killer before, but now,
I think you hit it on the nail. Women and the roles and the hats that we wear are varied. From being the mother to being head of the household to having so many responsibilities that we neglect our own health. Self-care is important, and I think that's a message that needs to be conveyed as well, to stop what you're doing. You cannot take care of other individuals or family members if your health is not taken care of first. And I think it's the roles that we have and the resilience, the grit that keep us going forward and not necessarily taking the time to pause to take care of ourselves. And I think others may chime in and say the same, as Dr. Knighton and I have had numerous conversations about this, raising kids, also helping with the aging family members. We have a lot of roles and responsibilities, and to the point we look up, I didn't get my annual physical, I didn't do this, or, things of that nature. And so one of my research studies focused on, with technology we have available to us at our fingertips. Do we need to set reminders in our phone in terms of taking our medication? And that is a huge part of heart health, is adhering to prescribed medication regimens. And in terms of high blood pressure, in terms of cholesterol, in terms of managing one's diabetes. And so those are all important. And I think women, we have these symptoms, but we ignore them. If we have nausea, we may take a over-the-counter med, resolve that problem, and not think twice about it. Especially if it may come up 2 to 3 times a week, we consider that as a normalcy for our body and may not address it. So things of that nature does delay us from taking care of ourselves along with other responsibilities.
Dr. Knighton, I remember when Minnie Riperton, the great Minnie Riperton, when she was on the Tonight Show and Johnny Carson asked her, really to reveal that she had been battling breast cancer. And she said, he said, how did you know that there was something that was not quite right? She said, I'm in tune with my body. Before she even did the self-breast exam, she said, I'm in tune with my body. I felt that something was not right. Ooh, Dr. Knighton, with all this stress that we're under, it's just hard to get quiet enough to even pay attention.
I agree. And that's a part of the problem, right? Like, meaning just when we think about everything that we bear, and Dr. Deb mentioned this, Dr. Steele mentioned this, but you think about, like, just our ability and our capability to manage, meaning like we're carrying the stressors, like of our spouses. We're carrying the stressors of our kids, of our siblings, of our parents. And, we find, or what we think we're doing is finding ways to cope with that, but internally it's bearing down on us in terms of stress. So you have that as being like one aspect of it. The other piece of it is, and I know this to be true because I've had these experiences of where I have had the heart palpitations, right? Because
Me too.
We don't talk about how anxiety plays into this either. We don't talk about how stress plays into this. We don't talk about how being overwhelmed plays into this. And honestly, like you mentioned with her saying, I know my body. I've known my body so many times and have gone in and said something's not right with my heart. And I've been downplayed by a doctor telling me, like, no, that's not what it is. And then at some, depending on your insurance may have to refer you to a cardiologist or a heart specialist to be seen. And sometimes your primary may be the gatekeeper that's keeping you away from being able to check on your heart. So I encourage people that if you have a primary care doctor and you feel that something is going on as a woman, understanding our symptoms look different, that may be your very time where you say, you know what, I need to seek out another primary right now, or me and my primary not going to agree on this issue, so I need to go and speak with someone else and get a second opinion and potentially even have that person put you in for a heart consult. Because a lot of times, like, our primaries may be the gatekeepers, and if you don't have a primary, you can't get to that cardiologist that you need or even understand that seeing a heart specialist may give you better recommendations than that primary care provider that is only just there to look at your overall general health when they may need to go deeper and look deeper at what's going on.
Dr. Deb, we all have a lot on our plates, but I don't know, why is this so hard for us to manage?
I don't know that it's necessarily hard for us to manage as much as it is, I think oftentimes people wait until they're really up against the wall to sort of take these things on. So we've been saying this, and I've definitely been saying this all of COVID. I've been asking people to do just a few basic things. And like Dr. Still said, you got to have a primary health care provider. If you don't have one, your first order of business should be to get one. And you can get one through your local federally qualified health center. Worst case scenario, they'll see you. And like she said, oftentimes they'll take walk-ins. So this notion around making this investment in your health and practicing the basics, like eating a well-balanced, high-nutrient-dense diet, practicing good sleep hygiene, and moving your arms and legs and trying to get that heart rate up every day for about 30 minutes. Those little three basic things would make probably the biggest and most profound difference in people's long-term health. But the thing that you're fighting for is actually far away, right? Like, you will notice a difference now if you put those three things in. If you aren't practicing those three things and you put those three things in, you will notice a difference in how you feel and your energy level. That good diet, you'll probably see changes in your skin and your nails and your hair and things like that. But most people can get away for years and years and years without practicing those three things and be okay. It's when you start to get up there in age and the impact of carrying a lot of excess weight on your joints starts to kick in. The impact of not exercising, and now there's no magic pill that will help you get that LDL or that HDL down. You really can only do it with exercise. And now you're not used to exercising or moving your arms and legs or asking your body to do much. I see it all the time. I fly a lot, and I see people in the airport who you can just see who just are not physical. You know how difficult it is oftentimes to get from the gate that you're at to where the baggage claim is. And then I watch people give up. And then I say, you want me to call somebody and see if they can get you a cart? So I think a lot of the things that really people have at stake, right? Like riding this one body through this whole, race called life. I just don't think people really see what's on the horizon and see how important what they are doing right now is for having that horizon be one where they still have some vitality and some measure of health, so that they're not just alive, but that they're actually living and able to be fully engaged in life. So I've taken on a lot of these things because I want to take my great grandkids to the park. That's my goal. That's the future that I keep thinking about. Not my grandchild. I want to be able to take India's children to the park and run around with them. And India's 5 months old. And so that's a real motivation for me to remind myself, you got to stay active now. Like now. It's not just taking India. I want to be around India will never meet my mom or my dad. My kids never met my dad, but I want my granddaughter, I want us to be able to take a multi-generational picture and it be 4 generations of women or 4 generations of family in that picture. And to do that, what you do right now is the investment in your health and vitality later in life. And so, I just encourage people, take it on, create a goal, create something that calls you mightily forward and that calls you to be. And it could be something, really kind of like maybe out of the box, but people need that. They need that real stake and that skin in the game because right now most of us are okay. We're fine. The first time you get prescribed a medication, you think, oh, okay, no big deal. But, that's a slippery slope. And once you get on that backside of that curve and your health starts to go down, for a lot of people, they go fast.
Well, you know what?
Ability, and then it's a wrap.
It is a wrap for so many of us, and it does not have to be that way. Dr. Steele, will you come back to the show and continue to flesh this out with us?
Sure.
Really, because I think we really need to be walked through this, because a lot of us are walking through this. You get to the airport, and when you have to get from gate 1 to 2, that's when you see, ooh, I'm out of breath. We are struggling, and Americans are really struggling. We don't have good baseline health, and we can do it. We can turn this around. We really can. Dr. Carolyn Still, Case Western Reserve University, Dr. Shanina Knight in Case Western Reserve University, and of course, the head of health on the Santita Jackson Show, Dr. Deborah Verholden from Johns Hopkins and Michigan State University, their School of Medicine. Love you so much. Talking about the war in Ukraine. Will we go to war? Will we have peace? I don't know. Let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show. Dr. Still?
Yeah.
Oh, I want you to come back because this is a conversation that we don't. So many of us don't get an opportunity to have a conversation with people like you and Dr. Knighton and Dr. Verholden. I mean, you all have all the credentials in the world, and you want to talk to us, but we don't have. There's but so much of you that can go around. Let's keep it real. But this is like free therapy for people. So eventually people call in and they say, well, I have a friend who who has this issue, and it's typically us, and that's okay. Everybody, I've had my heart palpitate. Look, I went into the hospital for what they thought was congestive heart failure years ago. It turns out it was not that, but I was very, very blessed. Because, I'm not so sure that it wasn't that, because I had all of the signs. The edema had gone up to my knee and would not go down. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, it wouldn't go down. And plus, I was like 200 plus pounds heavier than I am now. But my body was breaking down. It was like your greatest fears have come upon you. And I could just see my father he wouldn't say anything. He just said, baby, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. He said, because I'm not burying any children.
Right.
But, oh, you guys, guess what? I just found out I'm in People magazine this week. They did a, I don't read People I used to read People every week. I used to read it every week, but I don't anymore. And it's not that I don't love People. I don't have enough time to do everything. But I agreed to be a part of this. They were doing something for Black History Month. They wanted to know, people whose parents have contributed to Black history. What are your memories? And so, you know what? I will send you all this. I think they interviewed Muhammad Ali's daughter. I think Ethel Waters' granddaughter. Well, I said I would do it, and I did it, and it was great. So there it is. I talked about my prom night with my dad. He was very he, he actually saw me go to prom, and it was an exciting thing. So I'll send you. I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but there it is. I just found out. Of course, he has the biggest picture on the page. So, oh, oh, well, look, it's about him. It wasn't about me. I'm not mad about it. Oh no, one of my girlfriends, and bless her heart, she's related to someone very famous, and she's accomplished, and she gets upset when they interview her and they ask her about the person to whom she's related. I said, well, why else do they want to talk to you? A lot of people are accomplished. What's wrong with you? I mean, the problem I would have is if you had not done anything with the gifts that God gave you. You went to school, you polished this skill and this gift. Okay, but get over it, child, please. I just can't take myself that seriously. I can't. So anyway, but I just sent that to you all, and I'll send it to you, Dr. Still. Somebody just sent this to me, and I have to show it to my mother so she can. Oh gosh, I'm scared to show it to her. I don't know what she's gonna say.
Uh,
Oh
Mrs.
man.
Benjamin on the line and ready.
Okay.
And I also have a message to pass along to you. Jewel from New York called. She said she wanted to say hello, but her voice was sore, so she couldn't go on the air.
Oh, I miss you all. Okay. Okay.
But she said to say good morning to you and hope you're having a good day.
I love to jewel and rest your voice. And do we have Miss Benjamin on?
She's on right now.
Oh, okay. My dear Benjamin,
Yes.
how
Good
are
morning.
you?
I'm very good. How are you doing?
I am doing well. We've been talking about our heart health, the number one killer of women in the United States, heart disease. Oh boy.
Oh, yeah, terrible.
I mean, it is terrible. But how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing very good, except that I'm worried about a war in Ukraine.
I want you to talk to us about that because, I mean, it seems like the Russians said we've pulled back. America said we don't believe you. I'm like, what are y'all doing? What do you mean? No, they're going back
Yeah,
to. They're
right.
going
No,
back in. They're going inland. They're not really going home. I'm like, what are y'all talking about? This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's crazy. I mean,
Right.
you guys, America has not won a war since the Second World War. Okay, we didn't win
Yeah.
Korea. Medea, we haven't won anything. What are we doing?
No, certainly we don't want to see another war in Europe. Boy, that was just, the thinking about a war with Russia is just mind-boggling.
Well, it's crazy, but thinking about a war, I think
Wait,
it's
1 minute.
it's hubris, I think, on our parts that
Right.
this war would not come and visit us here.
That's right.
We're living in a different kind of world, so, but I'm
Yeah.
gonna key it up to you. And then, of course, I came across these articles where one of President Biden's closest officials was going to benefit from this, from these Afghanistan's accounts being frozen. Well, not frozen, being taken by the
Yeah.
United States. This is crazy.
30 seconds.
You know they're wrong
Yeah,
for
I
that.
heard that.
You know they're wrong for that. And then they're going to personally profit from this. Oh. Okay. Well, let me get through some of these headlines. And then, of course, I have that live read, Matt.
Copy that.
Thank you, sweetie.
10 seconds, by the way.
All right. Quiet now. Thank you.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Thursday, February 17th, 2022. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, WCPT, having taken the reins from AR America. That's what we used to be, but today we're WCPT and AM 950 radio. My friends and family to the north, Chad Larson, giving you a shout out this morning, and everybody at AM 950 radio, and Matt, who tunes in faithfully every day, sending you much love, my dear friend. Everybody, we've been talking about heart disease, the number one killer of women in the United States. Please do not ignore the signs. Men and women, don't ignore the signs. If you want to hear the podcast of this show where we were talking with Dr. Carolyn Still, Dr. Shanina Knight, and of course Dr. Deborah Verholden about that, please go to WCPT820.com/Santita. Less than an hour before the end of the show. After the end of the show, and then you can hear the whole show without commercials, everybody. Let us talk about Ukraine, what is going on there. Let's talk about Afghanistan. Why won't we give them their money back? And did you know that a Biden official and many are lining up to make money off of the money that we're taking from Afghanistan? What? Can't wait to talk with you about that. And then, of course, at the bottom of the hour, we're talking about Ahmaud Arbery and all of these racist texts, and yes, even a racist song about black people that his killers pushed around on the internet. Everybody, in Chicago, we're going to have a high of 35 degrees today, and we're expecting snow. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 8 degrees above zero. Mostly sunny. The Dow closed down 54 points. The NASDAQ closed down 15 points yesterday, and the S&P 500 closed up 3.9 points. And in the NBA, the Raptors were triumphant over the Timberwolves, 103-91, and the Bulls reigned supreme last night, 125-118 over the Kings. In last night, the Wild, well, they fell to the Jets. The Jets 6, the Wild 3. And tonight, the Blue Jackets will be here in Chicago playing Chicago's team. Russian forces along Ukraine's borders have increased by about 7,000 troops. We're going to be talking with Code Pink co-founder Medea Benjamin about that. What does that mean? Are we going to give peace a chance? Let's talk about that, everybody. Call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. The U.S. government plans to make high-quality masks available for children. A senior advisor to the White House told CNN yesterday the move appears to be an extension of the Biden administration's ongoing effort to distribute 400 million free N95 masks from the Strategic National Stockpile. Have you gotten your masks, everybody? America is third in the medal count, and we lost in women's hockey to the Canadians yesterday. But you know, the only people who have won the gold medal in Olympic competition in women's hockey have been the women of the United States and the women of Canada. Congratulations, Canada. Congratulations to you. And congratulations to America's team for a job well done. If you're purchasing a new home, refinancing your existing home, securing a VA loan, or if you're even pursuing a reverse mortgage, you need to call Team Hochberg. You know, more than 300,000 African Americans have been pushed out of Chicago. It's just gotten too expensive. And it's getting too expensive for more and more and more people. We can't hold on to our homes, and we want to be homeowners, but we don't know. We just feel like we cannot afford it. If you work with Team Hochberg, you might even be surprised to find out that even with bad credit, you can fix your credit. With no credit, you can build your credit. If you are just overloaded with credit card debt, they can get together a plan for you that will help you to get out of credit card debt and even save money. So call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or visit 56david.com, 56david.com. If you want a free consultation with them, they will do that. Tell them what your problem is, and then you can become a client of theirs, and they will work through bad credit, no credit, rebuilding your credit, eliminating credit card debt. They do it all, everybody. Indeed, Pete posted a 5-star Google review after saving over $800 a month, about $10,000 a year he has saved, after completing a cash refinance with the help of Team Hochberg. Yes, you can do that. They have a wonderful team, Mark Zenner and so many people. They're very responsive, and they give you a free consultation. They can tell you what it is that they can help you do. And you can get out of this debt, everybody. And you'd be surprised, even with these massive credit card bills. If you work with them, they'll work with your credit card company and they'll even lessen your payments. So call them at 855 David, 855 David, and let's get ourselves together financially, everybody. It can happen even in times such as these. This is a woman for whom I have so much admiration. The great Medea Benjamin. Indeed, she's an icon in the peace movement all around the world. She just returned from Honduras at that historic inauguration. We're so excited about that. You have a true progressive in office, and we need to give this woman support. That having been said, we are waking up every day, Medea Benjamin, to the drum beats of war. Now, we're hearing the Russians say, we don't want war. We want to work with NATO to, you know, to not have war. And yet, it seems that everything is pointed toward NATO and the United States leading a charge toward war. What's going on here?
Well, first, let's just talk about NATO for a minute, because I'm not sure how much your listeners know or remember the history of NATO, it was created in 1949 as a bulwark against the Soviet Union. And after that, there was the Cold War and the Warsaw Pact, which had the Soviets and their allies. So you had these two military alliances. And then the Soviet Union collapsed, and the Warsaw Pact collapsed. And one would have thought, okay, the Cold War is over. Now there's no need for NATO. But NATO continued. And not only that, when Gorbachev made an agreement with George Bush Sr. about the reunification of East and West Germany, they agreed that NATO would not expand anymore towards Russia's border. They said not one more inch eastward. And at that time, there were 16 countries in NATO. Fast forward to today, you have 29 countries in NATO, and indeed, NATO has gone all the way to Russia's border and had promised Ukraine that Ukraine could join NATO as well. There's 1,200 miles of border between Ukraine and Russia. So if you look at it from the Russian side, they see themselves surrounded by a hostile, U.S.-dominated military alliance. And that's one of the reasons that this conflict is so tense right now, because one of their main demands is to say, guarantee us that Ukraine is not going to join NATO. And then they want to look at all the forces, including missiles pointed at them, that are right along their borders. So we have to put the responsibility on not just Russia for building up its troops along its border, which is a threat to Ukraine, but we have to also put the blame at the steps of the United States and NATO for not fulfilling its promises.
So can they be blamed for being alarmed? I mean, because of course, after the Soviet Union broke up and, there was this renegotiation with NATO, which they said, we want no more eastward expansion. Okay, that was the agreement, but we broke the agreement. The United States and NATO broke the agreement. I mean, so why aren't we talking about that? Because, you break agreements, that's alarming to people.
Well, that's right. And, that's one of the problems in the United States in agreements is that whoever makes a deal with us doesn't know from one administration to the next if that deal is going to stick. And in this case, you have to recognize that when NATO continues to expand, put bases in, missiles in, troops around, that Russia feels surrounded. And we don't know what's going to happen. There's a standoff now. Will Russia invade Ukraine? Well, that's what the U.S. has been calling now for months. And Russia's saying, we're not invading, we're getting ourselves ready. And they're saying maybe Ukraine is poised to try to take back these two independent republics in the eastern part of Ukraine that are Russian-speaking and have claimed themselves independent, and Ukraine saying, we want to take them back. Now, maybe diplomacy will prevail, and that's certainly what we want to happen, but if it does prevail, there's going to have to be compromise, and the U.S. is going to have to walk back what it has said so far. And so far, one of the things it's said is that we have an open door policy for NATO. We will not take it off the table that Ukraine has the possibility of joining NATO. But there is some positive movement on that front, Santita. And I don't know if you heard the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, say the other day, well, maybe joining NATO was just a dream, that basically implying that we won't ask to join NATO. And that could be one of the key things of a compromise, is that U.S., the big superpower doesn't have to say, okay, we're going to change our policy. But if Ukraine doesn't apply to get into NATO, that would be one way to stand back from this. Of course, there are other issues about these two republics, these two independent republics, and there are issues of all the missiles that are surrounding Russia that Russia wants to have NATO walk back. But these things can all be negotiated, and there is a flurry of negotiations with Germany and France and the cooler heads in Europe getting involved in, because they know what would happen to them, what would happen to their energy prices, what would happen to Europe if there is a war between Russia and Ukraine. It'd be disastrous.
Well, I mean, why is the United States, it seems like the United States is central to this conversation. Why?
Well, it is, and you'd have to, it's a good question. You should ask why, because this isn't even our part of the world. Why is the United States so involved in it? And that's because the United States dominates NATO, and the United States wants to dominate the world. We have over 800 bases all around the world. Russia doesn't have bases around the world. So it's an important question to ask. With all the issues that we have here in this country, why are we involved in a country like Ukraine that poses no national security threat to the United States? And Santita, let me give you one reason why. Because yesterday it was reported that the budget for the Pentagon is going to be higher than it ever was before. And part of that is to prepare the weapons we're going to need if we fight a war with, guess who? Russia or China.
Who benefits from that?
Well, it even says in the article that came out yesterday, the beneficiaries are Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, the top weapons manufacturers. And they're the ones who have a lot of control in our Congress. They give a lot of money. They have a huge lobby group. And that's how we get all these hawks in the Congress who actually are pushing Biden, are goading him on to say, you're being too soft on Putin. And they have all kinds of bills in the Congress saying we want to not only send more money for weapons to Ukraine, money that we need here at home, but we also want to impose these very draconian sanctions on Europe, on Russia. And who would benefit from that? The oil industry in the United States.
And it seems Germany doesn't want this because their Nord Stream project, right, would be disrupted, where they would get their oil directly from Russia.
A huge multi-billion-dollar project. And, that's why there is this emphasis in among the Europeans to try to stop this conflict from happening, because they know their economies would be so affected. They have a lot of trade with Russia, and especially the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which is something that is important for their future energy prices. And I think they're torn between their alliance with the United States and their own interests. And in the end, what the U.S. is trying to do is create this wedge between Europe and Russia, and wants all of Europe to be on the side of the United States, to cut its major financial ties with Russia, and to have Europe more dependent on the United States for things like energy as well as for their own military security.
Where do you see this going? Because we have another problem with Afghanistan. I want to get into that with you before you go. Where is this going? I mean, because it seems like Ukraine's not even at the table. No one's even paying any attention to them.
The Ukrainians are saying, hey, whoa, stop. You're sensationalizing all of this. You're causing our people to panic. You're pulling your staff out of the embassy. You're telling Americans to leave. And meantime, we have friends in Ukraine, and they show us pictures of people in nightclubs and bars and dancing, and they're like, just calm down, all of you. But it is super serious because, Santita, we don't know how wars start, how there is an accidental firing. In fact, there's what we've heard is there's renewed fighting in these republics of Donbass, and that could cause the Russians to feel they had to go in and support these breakaway republics. So we don't know what's going to happen. It's a very, very dangerous and tense situation. I think the message that we have to keep sending to Washington and our elected officials is no war with Russia, negotiations, not escalation.
We're talking with Medea Benjamin, co-founder of Code Pink, indeed an icon in the fight for peace all around the world. Give Afghans their money back. That is what Code Pink is saying. And then we're seeing Biden's Afghanistan Council left the White House in January. Now, guess what? Wait for it. He's poised to reap a huge financial windfall from billions that have been seized in these assets. Lee Woloski, who... How does this work? He leaves the White House and he goes to a law firm. He's a lawyer. And now he and other lawyers and lobbyists are scrambling to get their slice of this $3.5 billion of Afghan money, which doesn't belong to us. What's going on?
So
I'm asking you, what is happening? This is crazy.
Well, this is really crazy. When the Taliban took over in August, the U.S. said, we're going to take your assets that are in U.S. banks. Now, you might ask, well, what are they doing in U.S. banks? It's actually a normal practice for countries in the global south to park their federal reserves in the U.S. or in Western Europe because it's supposed to be a, quote, safe place. They earn interest, and they're not expecting a coup to happen in the United States, but it's supposed to be a safe place. Lo and behold, when the Taliban take over, Biden says, okay, we're going to freeze your money. Now, that's $7 billion in the U.S. Federal Reserve. And once that money is frozen, Biden also says to the World Bank, the IMF, freeze all money that was going to Afghanistan. So can you imagine a country that was dependent for 75% of its public expenditures were coming from the outside? All of a sudden it had no money. The banks didn't literally have cash. People are waiting for days online to be able to withdraw the maximum of $400 from their account. And this is at a time when there is widespread hunger, when there has been a drought, a very severe winter, prices are rising for fuel, for food, and children are dying every day of starvation. So their economic system is collapsing. Their banking system is collapsing. And that's why we and many others around the country are saying, unfreeze their assets, give them back their money. The central bank is not the Taliban, it's the people, and it's the people's money. And this has been a big, we've been doing this for 6 months now. Well, all of a sudden, Biden makes a new move last Friday, And he said, okay, we're going to unfreeze this money, but it's not going back to the central bank to shore up the economy. Half of it's going to be held for potential compensation for 9/11 victims who have had these lawsuits against the Taliban, and we'll have to talk about that. And the other half is going to, first they said it was going to go for humanitarian aid to help the Afghan people. And we said, no, that has to go to the bank. That has to shore up the economy, because Afghanistan doesn't want to be a basket case forever. It wants a stable, functioning economy, and for that, it needs a banking system. And Santita, the central bank, was set up by the United States. It's like one of the only positive things that we did in 20 years there was to set up a banking system with international laws and ways to monitor how the money goes in and out. And then all of a sudden, we're letting that whole system collapse. So that's why we're saying now, bad move, President Biden.
Well, it seems like it's not just collapsing, it's converting to us.
Well, and to 9/11 families. And, you know, we should be clear that 9/11 families did get compensated monetarily right after 9/11. They got $2 million for every family. And Afghans who were killed by U.S. bombing get nothing. There are so many thousands of victims of U.S. bombing in Afghanistan who are among the poorest people in the world. So we're going to take money from the poorest people in the world to pay people who, yes, suffered tremendous loss, but they don't need the economic compensation. They need justice, and that's one of the reasons they've been trying to go after Saudi Arabia. But the U.S. doesn't want them to go after Saudi Arabia because that's a U.S. ally, and there's a lot of money in the oil business to be made in Saudi Arabia.
Maybe that's the key. It's the money. That appears to be the rub. Medea Benjamin, you've got to come back and talk about this because we can't take their money. Come on, you guys.
That's right.
We can't take their money. And you know what? All we are saying is give peace a chance, and no one shouts that louder. And really, for the benefit of us all, no one has done it longer and better than Medea Benjamin, co-founder of Code Pink. Indeed, you are my heroine. Praise God for you and your wonderful work. Oh, you just don't stop.
Wonderful to be on with you. Thank you so much, Santita.
Always a joy. Always a joy. Let's talk about Ahmaud Arbery, everybody, on the Santita Jackson Show. God bless you. Thank you so much, Medea Benjamin.
Thank you.
Now, you guys, you know we shouldn't be taking Afghanistan's money. You know that is just absolutely crazy and wrong. You know that. You know that's crazy. You know it. You know we have got to do better than this. And not just better, just do right. We don't have the right to take their money now. We don't have the right to do that. It's wrong to do it. You know. And what is really going on in Ukraine? It sounds like Ukraine. I mean, we're not even talking to Ukraine. America's talking to Putin. That kind of, sort of. Help me with this. And in Afghanistan, with respect to their money, now we see the Washington lobbyists, one of whom is coming straight out of the White House. They are poised to reap a financial windfall from these assets. I mean, seriously? That is just unethical. Yeah, it is. It's unethical. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. Crazy. But let's talk about Ahmaud Arbery. That case is getting more and more interesting. More and more interesting. You know, by the day. We're seeing more and more and more. More and more and more. So, it's a lot. Boy. Okay. Yeah, somebody just sent this to me. I'm glad I will try and post it, you guys. I will try and post it. Okay.
Okay, I have Mrs. Wells on the line. Still trying to get a hold of Attorney Griggs, though.
Oh, okay. Please let me know when you get him. Thank you so much. Oh, gosh.
Okay, we've got about 1 minute.
Okay.
Okay, we have Attorney Griggs, and we also have about 10 seconds on this break.
Now that your heart attack, just you can pat your heart.
No, we're all good.
Okay. Oh boy.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. I am Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you today on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. I found that article. It's from People Magazine. I'm in People this week. Hey. And they used actually a nice picture. If you go to the African American Museum in Washington, the picture of me is jacked. Just walk past when they're talking about Reverend. Walk past me, please. Oh gosh, bless your heart. But it's a wonderful series of little essays. I didn't give an essay. I was just talking to someone, and they loved my story about my prom night with my dad. So I didn't go to prom with my dad. It wasn't like that. Well, I actually did have a date. And so get your People magazine this week so you can hear from Dionne Warwick as she talks about Cissy Houston and Whitney Houston and Harry Belafonte's daughter. And so many people are talking about these notables who are their fathers, mothers, and grandparents. So it'll be great. So everybody, let's talk about Ahmaud Arbery. What is going on with that case? We're hearing about the racism. Of course, we know racism was what drove these three men to kill this man, but it's coming out in the federal case. Why didn't it come out in the state case? Before we go to Attorney Gerald Griggs from the NAACP of Atlanta, and indeed, he's a great social activist, social justice warrior. He said he was inspired by Reverend Jackson, but Reverend Jackson is inspired by him, as he is pushing for these executive orders that we need right now for voting rights and justice in policing. The president could do that today if he wanted to, and more than that, if we pushed him to. Before we get to you, we have a big event at the beginning of March with Chaparral. She is honoring her son with a foundation, and she's helping mothers who have lost their children to gun violence or to just something awful. She is working with the community. She gets food, and she gets school supplies to our children. There's so much great work that the Courtney Copeland Foundation is doing. And you have a big gala with the Invisible Institute. Talk to us, Chaparral.
Yes, Santita, thank you so much for having us on this morning. I want to say that, what we're doing is we're turning our pain into a purpose. So at the Courtney Copeland Memorial Foundation, we definitely do assist our community and basically continue the legacy that Courtney left for each and every one of us to follow. Basically, he was, helping single moms. He was actually helping the homeless, as well as also a lot of children. He loved kids. And so this foundation basically basically is doing our first annual charity ball to actually support the gala that actually supports these programs that we have in place to help our community. So we're asking everyone to go to eventbrite.com, and the keyword is Courtney Copeland Memorial Foundation. The event is on March 5th. This is the 6-year anniversary of the passing of Courtney Copeland, and so we're asking everyone to support. If you can't come out yourself, we're asking you to support and purchase a ticket for a mother who has lost a child. We do also have a lot of people who have donated already to the foundation. Every little bit helps. Nothing is too small. So please give us a call at 708-526-4546, 708-526-4546, or visit us at www.copelandmemorial.com. Thank you so much, Santita.
Absolutely, everybody. Please go on and get those tickets. Get those tickets. Even if you can't go, please support the Courtney Copeland Foundation. We've got Attorney Gerald Griggs, brilliant civil rights lawyer and civil rights activist, to talk about Ahmaud Arbery. And, we're seeing now we're in the federal trial phase of this seeking accountability. I don't know if you can ever get justice for Ahmaud Arbery because, he was murdered. Murder is always inhumane. But I mean, this particularly so because we knew that it was driven by racism. Talk to us. What are we looking at in this case? Because in the state case, they studiously avoided race and racism. Racism just dropped in a little bit, but they didn't really touch it. This is the centerpiece of this case. Why?
Absolutely, because this case was motivated by racial animus, and we have been watching and seeing in the federal trial 10 years of racial animus through emails, text messages, social media posts, conversations with friends. Travis and Gregory McMichael and William Roddy Bryant were clearly racist. The things they said about African Americans, and not using that term, they used the N-word, they called them monkeys, they called them all kinds of things. And we are seeing this evidence played out on a federal level. And the reason why it's important is so that people will understand that this was a modern lynching. This was all about race. And I'm actually ashamed that the prosecutor in the state court case strayed away from all of this, because this actually points to the motive of the murder. This would have dispelled all of the attempts of the defense to paint this as anything other than a modern day lynching. But I'm happy that the Justice Department is laying out this case fact by fact, piece by piece, email by email, witness by witness, to hear the words and the thoughts of these three men as they hunted and murdered Ahmaud Arbery. I mean, even William Roddy Bryant and his comments about his daughter dating a black person, he said that, and I quote, she got her an N-word. I mean, this stuff, talking about what he was doing on MLK Day, saying that he had to work so all the N-words could get the day off on MLK Day. These are things that even William Roddy Bryant harbored in his heart. And, of course, Travis and Greg McMichael, the things that were said over Ahmaud's dying body, and then to actually see the picture of the hole in the center of Ahmaud's chest. This was a modern-day lynching, and the world needs to see it. I'm thankful that we're having this federal trial.
Well, why wasn't it put in the state trial? I mean, was it a tactic?
I don't know the answer to that. Again, as a practicing lawyer who's been doing this for 17 years, a criminal defense attorney, a former prosecutor, I have no idea why this evidence did not come in. I understand that they felt they had a different type of jury, but any person that saw this evidence would have dispelled everything that the defense was painting in the state court case, and I'm sure they're going to do the same thing in a federal case. The fact that Derek Thomas, who's a friend of Travis McMichael, got up and testified yesterday, and he was subject to about 7 minutes of cross-examination where they talked about everything but the words of Travis McMichael, shows that there's no way to deflect from the statements that are coming out, the emails. He sent a video. Travis sent a video to Mr. Thomas with a small black child dancing to American Nigger. Okay? This is the type of evidence that's coming out. These videos, these text messages, these social media posts, these conversations. This was clearly about a modern day lynching.
Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT for any of you who doubted the motive behind the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. Here it is. But I'm just trying to figure out why it did not come out before. The FBI testified. Hey, we scrubbed their social media accounts and their texts, and this is what we came up with. We are shocked. Indeed, the New York Times says the volume of their racist posts and text are shocking. Just this is something they did on a regular, and it's not the N word. They used, I mean, they didn't say the N word. They just said nigger. That's what they did. They just did it all the time. They had the song that was, I mean, that's pejorative. Why did that not come into this particular case? And so it would have given you context for the lawyers of the McMichaels and of Mr. Bryan. It would have given you context for their lawyer attacking civil rights activists. It would have given you context, Attorney Griggs. And all of that was missing. I just, you know, because my thing is, if you cannot introduce it in the state case for Ahmaud Arbery, what happens to the countless people who are out here? There's so many Ahmaud Arbery's out here. There's so many. And you mean to tell me racism cannot be used as a contextualizer and as a defense? Or, I mean, as an offense in these cases?
Well, the good thing about it, Georgia now has a hate crime statute because of this. And we now understand why the governor was so focused on pushing a hate crime statute in Georgia, because we have these issues happening every single day. And again, for the prosecutor in the state court case, there's absolutely no reason why you didn't use this. This would have told the jury the context, like you said, as to why Travis McMichael and William Roddy Bryant and Gregory McMichael's lawyers were doing the things that they were doing, not only in the courtroom, but outside of the courtroom to black pastors, to black civil rights organizations. This paints a full picture of what was going on in the Santita Shores neighborhood. He was, according to them, was not supposed to be in that neighborhood, and they were going to send a message. The fact that we've now found out that Gregory McMichael moved Ahmaud Arbery's arms to check to see if he had a gun while he lay dying, gasping for air. We all knew he had no gun. You saw him from the bed of your truck. I'm trying to figure out, as a lawyer, someone who's been practicing law for 17 years, primarily in this field, how a prosecutor felt like this was not evidence that a jury should see. This is not relevant evidence. This is not evidence that points to the ultimate issue, that it was a malice murder, meaning you had formed malice in your heart before you shot him. This would have dispelled self-defense. It never would have even gotten to a jury charge if you put this evidence in. So I'm happy that Ahmaud's family pushed so hard for this federal trial so that people could see. This is akin to Mamie Till Mobley opening the casket. We are now peering into the heart of some of the people in this country that really have these type of racist motivations are now acting on it. And as Dr. King always says, you know, we can't legislate a man's heart, but we sure can constrain his actions. And that's what needs to happen after the verdict.
We're talking with Attorney Gerald Griggs, Atlanta NAACP, about this Ahmaud Arbery hate crime trial. I mean, now we're beginning to see something that we did not see in the state case. We're seeing the depth of the racial hatred that the McMichael father and son and Mr. Bryan had against Ahmaud Arbery. Now, we all knew this, Attorney Griggs, but it did not come out. It was not presented It was not presented in the state case. And I keep going back to that, but it's concerning to me because I'm wondering, is this a precedent that has been set? I mean, because it seems that everybody in American life can talk about racial grievance, about something that's happened to them, but black people are told to shut up. I mean, you don't, I mean, but let me just say, indigenous people have not had a treaty honored. Let me just continues to state that. They've been treated abominably because we are on their land still. So let's be clear on that. But whenever black people mention, and that having been said, not but that having been said, right behind that, whenever black people talk about, because people look at the indigenous community and you see the struggles that so many of them are having, and we go, okay, well, we kind of shrug our shoulders. No, you should not. These people they have been systematically taken out. But this is what happens to African Americans every day. And then when you get this court case, when you see what happened to this young man, everybody knows what happened to him, Attorney Griggs. But it's concerning to me
Absolutely.
that none of this was brought in, and no one sufficiently explained, at least not to me at the time, why this was not part of the state case. We made a lot about the attorney for, I guess it was it for Mr. Bryan, who said, we don't want Sharpton. We don't Jesse Jackson. Please don't let him come in here. Then Reverend Jackson shows up in the courtroom, that Monday, and this gives this context. And I'm just wondering, what does this mean? I mean, is this like, what does it mean is it that we cannot present racism and talk about it in the courts, or we should not talk about it?
No.
What is it? What's going on here?
It means that we need lawyers of good conscience and courage to present the facts and the truth. It's time to stop dancing around this stuff. In any murder case, the motive is always presented. So again, I respect the lawyers who did a yeoman's job, but this was a decision from the top. This was a decision from the DA that we want to shy away from race and just focus on the killing. And so we need to have a real conversation with our elected officials about doing what they were sent there to do. You were sent there to be a zealous advocate on behalf of the people, not a defense attorney. And so at this point, this is just the tip of the iceberg of the racial animus evidence. We still have multiple days of this. But after this trial is over, we need to take a hard look at the real reason behind why the district attorney in Cobb County decided that we would not talk about race in the state court case.
Well, not just race, so that we wouldn't talk about racism. Race is not the problem. Racism is the problem. My race is not the problem. It's not the problem.
I agree with you.
You know what I mean? I'm like, we need to be very, surgically precise, as precise as they were about cutting out our voting rights. Hello. With surgical precision.
Exactly. And we still need that executive order empowering the Justice Department to use Article 2 of the 1965 Voting Rights Act to protect our voting rights. But the reason why this case is so important is this case was the seminal reason for Freedom Summer 2020. If you remember, it started in Brunswick, Georgia, because we saw a young jogger running and being gunned down by 3 racist vigilantes, and we can now say racist vigilantes because it's been proven in a courtroom. And so when we talk about all the mobilization to protest and to vote in Georgia, it all stems this incident. And so for the President of the United States, it's time to recognize the elephant that's in the room. This political rhetoric is inciting racist violence against black people. And we have to push back. But if he doesn't push back, trust me, there's a legion of lawyers that will push back. I'm appreciative of the work of Ben Crump in this case, the work of Lee Merritt in this case, the work of Chris Stewart in this case, and so many other black lawyers who said, no, it's not going to happen on our watch in Georgia, and Georgia's going to send a message. And we're going to send a message in that courtroom. And so that's why I'm appreciative of Marcus Arbery and Wanda Cooper-Jones, who fought for 74 days. You have to remember, 3 DAs saw this evidence, 3, and tried to cover this up. And so that's why it's important that your listeners understand why they have to continue to focus on this case and why we must get, as the Arbery family has said, we must get full justice, complete justice. That's why this federal case is important.
And thank you for mentioning his father. Please, thank you for that.
Yes.
Thank you for that. In the name of Richard Williams and, oh my goodness, and Joe Jackson and all these fathers who get beaten down. These black fathers love their children. This man drove all night. He was a trucker and went to and saw his son's blood on the street and vowed to do something about it with Ahmaud's mother. It's both of his parents who are together in this fight, and we are with them. Chaparral Wells, you called back?
Yes, Santita, I had to call back because something that Attorney Griggs said about this being just like Mamie Till pulling the sheets back and letting everybody see. And that is so true. When I look at this case, the fight that the parents are taking to the world is so that we can expose this racism that has been permeating through the country for centuries. And so if we get a conviction on this, it will not only be for Emmett Till, it'll be for Dr. King, it'll be for Medgar Evers, it'll be for Malcolm X, it will be for all those who have fought the good fight for black people. This is what it will stand for. So many of us have gone through this. It will help. It will resonate with me, who still haven't received justice for my own child. So it's just like, you're putting, like them saying that I agree that this was a hate crime. It's saying that they recognize your child as being human. And so that's something that I personally struggle with when I think about the way that Chicago Police Department treated my own son. And I said they didn't even see him as human. Mm-hmm. And so when we think about how many mothers had to go through this same type of experience that the Arbery's are going through, and so when you see that the prosecution didn't want to touch that, it's because they know that it is not. I feel like what they're trying to do is try to make things palatable for white people instead of they need to feel this pain that we feel as black people.
Wait a minute, and some scared black people. Because some of us don't want to talk about racism either. And some of our Hispanic brothers and sisters and some of our indigenous brothers and sisters, there's some people who are too scared or too co-opted to talk about it. So stay right there, Chaparral, because Chaparral is part of the, she's really part of the Santita Jackson Morningstar's family. And she had a son who was killed and trying to get the police. And we don't know what happened. We don't know what happened. We do know the police watched him die. We do know that. And so to not hear, and then we're in Chicago where you had Laquan McDonald. I lived in New York when they killed Yusef Hawkins. Come on. In New York. Don't make this a Southern thing. Please, y'all. This is an American dilemma. And we're still here. I've got 2 minutes and they belong to you, Attorney Gerald Griggs of the NAACP in Atlanta. Where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here? We continue to fight that your father and so many others have been on the front lines of for years. And we continue to remember that when we fight, we win. And if they don't want to talk about racism, we will talk about racism and we will expose it. Because the only way this country is going to move forward is if we address the sins of the past and the present. And so we have to continue to fight, continue to push, continue to use all of our skills, know that we are not alone, know that we are our ancestors' wildest dreams, and we are the hope and the courage of our descendants. So we need to ask ourselves, What are we going to do today to make sure injustice like what happened down in Santita Shores does not happen ever again, and we send a message?
Let's send a message, everybody. Let's send a message very quickly. The last minute literally belongs to you. The executive order on voting rights. What do we need to do, and why do we need it?
We got to call the White House. We got to make them understand that our voting rights are important. We have to demand an executive order empowering the Justice Department to go after the 19 states that are trying to roll back rights, because this is the most consequential right we have as American citizens. That's why it's mentioned 3 times in the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. So we have to make sure the president understands that voting rights are our most precious right. They are the only way that we can fight back. The most powerful weapon we have, nonviolent weapon we have, is the power of the ballot and to be able to cast it. So call the White House, tell the president we need an executive order on voting rights, and we need it right now.
Everybody, call 202-456-1414. 202-456-1414. Call the White House. We need our voting rights, and we need them now. An executive order is something that the president can sign today. It's not about what he would want to do. It's about what you will have him do. Remember, he works for us. He works for you. And the only reason he hasn't done it is because you haven't pushed. Think about that, everybody. Beyond his own inclinations. But you got to push, everybody. I love you, everybody. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. Attorney Griggs, you're a gem. Keep up the fight, my dear brother and friend. See you tomorrow, everybody. Love you. God bless you.